free and all of the brave.
Let's hear it for Jordan Leandry.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? I repeat, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? We're gonna have a problem here. Y'all act like you've never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Jordan Leandry. Welcome back to the Hot Corner podcast presented by Biased Boston Sports. I'm your host, Jordan Leandry, normally joined by Pete Bukowski, but he's not with us tonight. I am joined by a special guest. Here is Mel Mastrantonio. I hope I got that right.
That was close enough.
Close enough? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's Mastrantonio, but no one ever tries to say it. But thanks for having me on. I'm really excited.
Hey, cool. Yeah, I actually wrote down the pronunciation out. I have it spelled out, so I
Good.
try to
I
get it.
appreciate your effort. It means a lot. I'm flattered.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a different, style to the podcast. Normally, it's very Red Sox heavy, except for the last one we did a deadline special. But this is going to be pretty much all over the place with the MLB. We're talking a little bit of Sox, a little bit of Yankees, because Mel happens to be a Yankees fan.
I am. So all the Red Sox stuff will be coming to a minimum because I would like to talk about my team as much as Jordan would like to talk about his. So this will be the rivalry podcast, the rivalry episode.
Yeah,
Well,
we will try and keep each other's teams to a minimum while
yes.
spreading our team's love in there as much as possible.
Yeah, as unbiased as possible. We both can talk baseball without, talking about how much I hate the Red Sox. So
I should have probably told you that this is presented by Biased Boston Sports, which is the website that this goes on.
I saw on your Twitter, so I figured,
Okay.
I was embracing, what I was putting myself into because I'm a Jets fan. I'm sure you're a Pats fan.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't agree on anything, but at least we're both level-headed enough to talk about baseball as a whole.
Right. So I guess without further ado, we'll jump right in with some awards. We're going to give a little bit of predictions about who we think are going to win the respective awards in both the American and the National League. We will start with the MVP. Mel, I will let you kick it off with the American League.
American League, my MVP is Mookie Betts. I think by a long shot. I know you're smiling because yours is JD Martinez, but in my opinion, as far as the offensive juggernaut that is the Red Sox, yes, JD Martinez is right up there with Mookie Betts. But when you look at their defense, which has been just as lights out, just as dominant in the MLB, JD Martinez is no part of that. He is substandard in the field, as you will, and he just hits. I mean, he doesn't really offer anything to the Red Sox as a defensive player. So for him to be the most valuable player, I don't see it.
I know you thought my pick was JD Martinez. It actually is also Mookie Betts. I was smiling because you were talking about how you're going to try and keep the Red Sox talk to a minimum, and the first award you gave was to a Red Sox player. But
well, with the Yankees, it's hard because Aaron Judge has been out. So the only other person would be Giancarlo Stanton, but he's had such a rocky season. I can't really make a case for him. But
I just remember when we were talking about it, you were talking about making a case for Lindor, making a case for Ramirez, making a case for Chris Davis, and then we get on and you start talking about Mookie. My pick's also Mookie. I just think, like you said, the value he brings both offensively and defensively to the table. He's also leading the American League in wins above replacement.
Right.
So it's tough to argue against a guy who's just flat out owned opposing pitching, except for this little rough patch he's hit the last 3 or 4 days. But
yeah, he's 4 for his last 21. But even with that, in the second half, he still has a 300 batting average, 359 in the first half. You can't really argue with that. I think the only other person I would make a case for is Jose Ramirez because he's been just as offensively dominant. But the way I see it is that, the Red Sox versus the Indians, the Red Sox are having a historic season. It's not the 1998 Yankees, but I have to tip my cap. So Mookie's a part of that. And I think that definitely should be taken into consideration with the voting.
It is kind of interesting, though, when we talk about how JD Martinez, though, it doesn't help the Red Sox at all defensively. Just looking at his numbers from an offensive standpoint, he's very, very close to Mookie Betts for the league lead in batting average, which would give him the lead for all 3 categories in the Triple Crown voting. I'm curious to know if he wins the Triple Crown, do you still stand pat on your take that he should not win MVP?
I do, because it's most valuable player. And even if he's the most valuable hitter, I don't think he's the most valuable player. I just don't.
But when you factor in the fact that last year's Red Sox team around this year's Red Sox team around JD Martinez is essentially the same team that was on the field last year for Boston. Obviously, they have a new manager. They have a new coaching staff. They basically replaced Hanley Ramirez's production. I know Hanley started the year with the Red Sox, but they replaced Hanley's spot in the lineup, Hanley's production, with JD's production. And just looking at how Mookie has bounced back after a rough year last year, I know people will say injuries kind of affected him a little bit, but Benintendi's finally hitting that 300 average that everyone was expecting him to hit. Bogarts is having a bounce back year. Moreland was an all-star this year. It just top to bottom. I feel like his value just from him being in there, and then obviously we've seen him correct, or at least try to correct guys like Rafael Devers' swing, Jackie Bradley Jr.'s swing. I just think his value offensively might overshadow the fact he doesn't do anything defensively. Now, I don't think he should win MVP unless he wins the Triple Crown, but I think if he wins the Triple Crown, it's tough to not give it to him.
I agree with that. I mean, Triple Crown is a huge award, and I think that could warrant him being the most valuable player. But as far as the Red Sox go, as you said, it's top and bottom. So I do think if you remove JD Martinez from that lineup, the Red Sox, they might not be, what, are they almost at 90 wins?
They're 88, I believe.
Okay, so I think without JD Martinez, I mean, maybe the Yankees might be in a closer race with them, but I still think they're the Boston Red Sox for who they are this season. So as far as without JD Martinez, without Mookie Betts, I do think Mookie Betts brings more valuable to that team. But you're the fan; you watch every game, so I mean, you would know more. You would know better than I would, because I don't watch the Red Sox unless they're playing the Yankees. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, I get it, and like it's just tough to not give the guy the MVP if he has a year like a Triple Crown season.
If a Triple Crown year, then yeah, I get it. Even if he is a designated hitter, that is something to look at, but the designated hitter isn't even across the MLB. So, I mean, if he was in the National League, would he be? No.
What I mean?
If he had to play the field every day, I mean, do you think he'd be a different player?
Well, statistically this year, he's actually hitting better in the field when he plays in the field than when he's DHing. It's just, I mean, obviously his defense is horrible, and the Red Sox defense when he's out there, because normally he's out there when Jackie Bradley gets a night off. So that defense is just way, way down from the level it usually is at in the outfield when Jackie's out there. But we saw him hit last year in Arizona when he had to play the field every day. So I mean, it's not. I don't think his offense would take a hit, but obviously his defensive. If he played defense, his WAR and all those other numbers would just pull him down a little bit more. But my pick's still Mookie Betts unless JD wins the Triple Crown. That's just tough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, do you think it's unfair to compare his offense to Jackie Bradley Jr.'s defense? Because Jackie Bradley Jr.'s offense is terrible. If I'm wrong, correct me. But it feels whenever I watch him play and look at his stats, he's low 200 batting average, 700 OPS. I mean, I could be wrong, but him in the field is valuable to the Red Sox.
Right.
He's one of the best defensive center fielders. So, I mean, he's not deserving of the MVP award because of how bad his offense is. But when you look at his defense, so that's kind of what I'm saying about JD Martinez.
Yeah, and to your point, Jackie Bradley Jr.'s numbers are worse than they should be. I think I'm not a big advanced stat guru. Like, I don't know how things work, but like Jackie Bradley Jr.'s adjusted batting average is like 265. So I mean, it's so he has a lot of loud outs, and I know there was that 1 month where he hit like 136, and I was following a month he hit $190.
Yeah,
that was right around that time Hanley Ramirez got DFA'd, and I was losing my mind because Jackie Bradley Jr. was still on the team. And then I looked and I saw like his average exit velocity was like third in baseball over the course of that month, and I was like, okay, so he's just running into some tough luck. But
yeah, and to bring up the Yankees into this, that's exactly I think what Gary Sanchez's situation is. His numbers do not speak for the type of hitter he is, and I think if anyone watches the Yankees, they should know that.
Right.
Same situation, but anyway.
We'll move on. We should move on.
National League. Yeah. Who's yours for National League? I'll let you take that one.
I have 5 people listed in my notes for this because I honestly couldn't decide. I think the most obvious one to go with, it's not Nolan Arenado, which I know a lot of people are picking him to win it, but mine's Matt Carpenter. I know
Okay.
his average is down at 260 or was 269 entering yesterday. Cause I had my notes prepared for yesterday, but we obviously wound up scrapping that. But entering yesterday's average was 269, but he was one of the worst hitters in baseball the first month of the season. So he's been recovering from a very, very historically bad month for him, and he has just taken the National League Central and really the entire National League by the throat and just been like, I'm Matt Carpenter, and I hit 33 home runs as a leadoff hitter now because since they switched managers, he's been batting leadoff, and he's just been crushing it. And he's basically led the charge for that Cardinals team this entire second half, or really ever since they got hot and switched managers, because they're right on the bubble of the playoffs.
They are, and I've been saying all season that I think the World Series team is going to come from the National League Central, whether it be the Brewers or the Cardinals or the Cubs. But I think that's where the power is in the National League. That's not a popular opinion, but I saw a really cool stat about Matt Carpenter yesterday. He has not grounded into a double play all season, not one time.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw
That's
you
insane.
tweeted that yesterday, and I was like, I shared it with my dad immediately because I know he likes those random stats. Like I remember him, he sent me a screenshot of Joey Votto had only 7 pop outs in the last 8 years or something like that. So I showed my dad that stat, and he was like, "Oh my god, that's impressive." I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, now he's hitting leadoff, so it's a little bit.
I guess that could
it's behind the
be a little
picture,
bit, but
that is a very incredible stat to think about how he's not ground, especially since he's not a very fast guy. So you'd think a ground ball, he's pretty much an easy candidate to get thrown out. So
I think that's
having a double play all year
for the value he adds to that lineup, because he's not someone who, when he comes to the plate, is going to ground out into a double out. He's not going to create those bad situations where you're not going to get runners on base. So I could see the case for Matt Carpenter, absolutely. Mine, I'm kind of a closet Braves fan, so this might be a little skewed, but I think Freddie Freeman, just the season he's having and the season the Braves are having, I think would warrant MVP. I mean, on this season, he has a 321 batting average. It's the first in the National League. So, I mean, I know batting average isn't the best stat to look at, but I think what he does for the Braves, like he's played every single game the Braves have played this season. He has not had any days off, because I truly don't think the Braves can afford to lose him in the lineup, because they don't have the designated hitter. They can't just have Freddie DH one day to let him have a day off in the field. So I think as far as the most valuable player, I'd say Freddie Freeman, but I don't know. I have a lot for a National League too. I mean, of course, Nolan Arenado has to be considered. He's just the Rockies are only half a game back from the Diamondbacks now. They're coming from, if I could remember correctly, they were in 4th place a few weeks ago. So they were. He's always someone to talk about for the National League, and I don't know. My vote's Freddie, though.
My only reason for not picking Arenado, I was hell bent on picking him. I put everyone's numbers down on my notes for every candidate that I had for the National League, and I looked back at his splits, and it's just way too skewed. Like his average, his OBP, his slugging are all so much higher at Coors Field. And I know for the most part, guys tend to hit better at home, but with the way that the ball flies in Colorado, it's just, I don't know. I feel like there's guys that are probably more deserving, that are more balanced in both road and home, like you said, Freddie Freeman. I said Matt Carpenter. Do you have any dark horse MVP candidates? It doesn't have to be for the National League, but do you have one?
Kind of talked about this a little. I think for the American League, my kind of underdog would be Chris Davis. I know his numbers aren't as impressive as some of the other candidates, but what Oakland is right now is just, they're the hottest thing in baseball, and he keeps hitting those home runs. And I think as far as most valuable player, if he can get the Oakland A's into, I mean, they're winning their division right now. If they keep that up, that value he adds, I think. But I mean, it's hard to say he deserves it over someone like Mookie Betts, but I guess that would be my dark horse for the American League. And the National League, I don't want it to be another Brave, but you put it in my head talking about Nick Markakis.
I did, yeah. That's my fault. That one's my fault.
So I see the case for Nick Markakis as a dark horse MVP player. I don't think he deserves over Freddie Freeman, but I could see why he would get it.
Yeah, I hate to agree with you on everything here, but I also have both of those guys as my 2 dark horses.
Really?
Yeah, the thing with Chris Davis is, I mean, people get lost in the whole most valuable player versus best player in the game sort of debate.
Right.
Like, if we're looking strictly from a value perspective, if you took Chris Davis out of that Oakland A's lineup, I mean, they'd still have Matt Chapman, they'd still have Matt Olson, still have Marcus Semien. They still have good players, but having Chris Davis in the middle of that order provides a feared hitter that they haven't had since Donaldson, so or Cespedes. But not having, if they didn't have Davis, they would be probably dead last in the division. And Texas is bad this year; they'd be even worse,
right?
In my opinion. And then for the National League, I mean, Nick Markakis was an All-Star for the first time in his entire career this year, which is crazy because I feel like he should have been in previous years, not recently, but like in the beginning of his career. He was a pretty good player, and now this year he's leading the National League in doubles. He's leading the National League in hits. I mean, I know those two stats aren't the be all end all, obviously, of MVP, because when we talk about all these other guys, we're talking about average, slugging, home runs, WAR. Because Nick Markakis' WAR is only like 3.2 right now. So I mean, if you compare that to the guys like Nolan Arenado, you're like, come on, you're really going to make a case for Nick Markakis. But but his production in that lineup is crazy. And if you took him out of that lineup, then they're shots at winning the division, because it's a very close race in the National League East.
Yes, between them and the Phillies, it could go. Whoever gets hot in September, it's theirs. So I think you're right. If you remove Markakis from that lineup, it's not going to be the same. And him and Freddie Freeman are the only teammates in the MLB who have started every game. So he hasn't had a day off, and him and Freddie Freeman together lead the MLB in hits as teammates, those two. I think they have over 300 hits together. So
yeah, and I know you keep bringing up those days off because I know you're a big bring the DH to the National League person.
I am.
Yeah.
The DH is good for baseball, but if you don't want to get into that, because we still have to talk about rookies and Cy Young, we don't have to, but I have so many words about
we can get into DH. We can get into it a little bit later, but we will move on to the Rookie of the Year award. I'm gonna start this one, and this is gonna be my turn to talk about a guy that plays for my rival team. The American League Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, is definitely Miguel Andujar, and I know people hate on him a lot more than they hate on Gleyber Torres, because Andujar is an atrocious defender at third base. And like, I know people say, you're a Red Sox fan, you have Rafael Devers over at third base.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. It was like,
you can't talk about bad defensive third baseman. But I remember checking Baseball Reference about a week and a half ago and comparing like the projected defensive runs saved. And I know, again, that's not a be-all end-all stat for defensive value, but Andujar's is 7 worse than Devers. I'm not going to say that I'm still not a hypocrite for saying that Andujar is a bad third baseman, because obviously Devers is horrible over there.
Yeah, but he's a butcher at the hot corners.
But you just completely ignore the fact that he can't throw a ball over to first base if he's playing in the hole, because he completely screwed the Yankees over in the Sox series by doing that.
I mean, he did. But he's 23 years old. He's young. I mean, he got called up last year. I think he played a few games in 2017. But that's something that can be learned, or he could be. I know a lot of Yankee fans want him moved to first base because people are growing impatient with Greg Bird. I don't know that that's the answer for him, because his issue, I think, is his glove. It's his range. I'm not sure that first base would be the answer, but I do think that, him being a rookie and being so young, when you look at, Derek Jeter's rookie year, like, he had similar numbers as far as errors go. Like, it's just something that you learn, the more major league fielding you do and whatnot. I know I sound really stupid right now, but I don't think it, it takes away from what he does for the Yankees. I mean, he's been absolutely dominant, especially in Aaron Judge's absence. I don't know where the Yankees would be without him and Giancarlo Stanton right now. In the second half since the All-Star game, he's batting at .354 with a 1017 OPS. So, I mean, that speaks volumes for what he's been doing for the Yankees. So if you're able to overlook the errors he's making at third base, I don't think anyone any Yankee fan right now would want Gleyber Torres over Miguel Andujar.
It's funny you should bring up Derek Jeter, because he's statistically one of the worst defensive shortstops to ever play baseball.
But you would never hear people say,
because he had 3,000 hits and he was a 300 hitter every single year, and people ignore that because he's a Yankees legend, and that's why I think Andujar is getting a bad rap over at third base. And maybe third base isn't the answer for him 2-3 years down the road, but I think you got to ride it out with him, because if you already change his position his second year in the league, I don't know what his mental capacity is, but that might rattle him a little bit. But like you said, he's hitting .354 since the break, and I follow a few Yankees fans on Twitter, and I see every day Andy 5 times a day,
Yeah.
every single game. It's absolutely insane because then I always wind up checking and I'm like, oh, he's 2 for 4 again. Oh, he's 3 for 5. Oh, he hit another home run. Oh, he actually made a nice play at third. He's doing things that he's been a solid, stable piece in that lineup that Gleyber Torres just frankly hasn't been. And I know the debate is probably between just those two guys to begin with, but Andujar is my pick. At this point, Andujar is
absolutely. My pick. And I don't think Gleyber's defense is particularly elite right now. I mean, he's good. You know, you always want the good defenders, but his bat right now is just ice cold. And the Yankees are in a position to where they can't really afford any ice cold bats in the lineup right now. And it's frustrating. I mean, he's only 21 years old, so no one's giving up on Gleyber Torres. But Miguel Andujar is his showstopper right now. I mean, all rookies, he leads in RBIs. He has 65 RBIs on the season, and the number 2, I think it's Brian Anderson on the Marlins. He has like 54. So Miguel Andujar is a comfortable lead. He's number 2 in hits. He has 129 hits. And the number 3 for hits for rookies only has 104. So it's a pretty big margin from Miguel Andujar to the rest of the rookies. So I think clear cut, it's Miguel Andujar.
It is kind of crazy. I really wish Shohei Ohtani didn't get hurt in the beginning of the year because that would have made a great debate because the dude is just setting the world on fire, even if he is in Los Angeles. Just the fact he pitches and hits. I think it would have been an interesting debate had he never gotten hurt. But
yeah, I mean, he was absolutely electric in April and May, but he hasn't pitched since he came off the DL. So I think his value there is significantly lower. I mean, he's a pretty average hitter now. I don't think he's anything special as a DH, but I mean, until he pitches again, I mean, can't really make a case for him, in my opinion.
It just would have been an interesting debate had he never gotten hurt. The dude that throws 102 and hits 300 with home run power. It would have been a very interesting debate. It's just a shame he wound up getting hurt. Because now I have to stomach having to argue between 2 Yankees players for who I think is the more deserving rookie of the year.
Well, I mean, once we move on to Cy Young in a little bit, that's how I feel with MVP and Cy Young. It's just I'm going to have to see it go to 2 Red Sox players. It doesn't feel good, but
that's a good point.
I can't deny the talent that they have this year. So
yeah,
but National League, who's yours?
Mine's a Brave. It's Ronald Acuna.
Yeah,
and it's between him and Juan Soto, but I think it's kind of where I'm looking, kind of like an MVP sort of thing, where I'm looking at the team that's better. They're both in the same division. Acuna, when he got called up, and he was only played about 78, 79 games this year. And
yeah, he's played 72 games.
72, wow. So I'm a little off from that. But just when he got called up, and I know he set the world on fire the last week where he hit a leadoff home run in 4 straight games. And I know we'll talk a little bit about what happened that 5th game in a little bit. But
I have a lot of words for that.
So do I. But he was hitting 295 as of yesterday, 19 home runs, 43 runs batted in. He's just been an absolute animal, and he adds a new dynamic to that Braves lineup that, like Markakis and like Freeman, if you take him out of the lineup, that team just gets significantly worse, at least from an offensive standpoint. And the dude can absolutely fly, and he's a solid left fielder too. He's my pick, and I think it's not even close really between him and Soto, just because of how bad the Nationals are and how dysfunctional that clubhouse seems to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just the life he brings into that dugout alone, if you watch any Braves games, like the Braves have a new life because of him. And I think it's clear, Acuna versus Soto, Soto's 19 years old, hitting, he has 15 home runs, Acuna has 19. So when you get this 19-year-old kid doing well, it does warrant some conversation. Oh, maybe, he's the best rookie of the year. But I think what Acuna is doing for the Braves and doing for baseball in general makes him definitely the choice for rookie of the year for the National League. Considering
how hyped up he was in spring training too.
Yeah.
The fact he's come in and he's actually lived up to expectations and probably exceeded some.
Absolutely.
I don't know if people expect him to be as good as he's been. I mean, he was good basically from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing how hyped up he was and how well he's played since his call-up back in the beginning of the season, it definitely helps his cause, I would say, more than hurt it.
And I think that's what makes Miguel Andujar the clear-cut choice for me, is because no one expected him to be as good as he is. Gleyber Torres was supposed to be, the showstopper, but
it's him. Andujar.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cy Young.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first, or
you can go first? Yeah.
Okay, American League, it's kind of unfair. It's it's Chris Sale. It is. I mean, how could it not be Chris Sale? The only other person I guess could be Blake Snell, but it's Chris Sale. It's just he has a 1.97 ERA. And he's kept that up all season long.
Yeah. Yep.
He just lights out for the Red Sox. It's just not fair. Like, people cannot hit Chris Sale. I was looking at the Yankees lineup versus him, and it's pathetic. I couldn't.
Yeah, people gave him a lot of crap last year for going for the Red Sox being 1-3 in his starts, but completely overlooking the fact that only one of those losses was because Sale actually laid an egg. He dominated 3 of those starts, and he got no run support in any of them.
Yeah.
Even the game he won, he didn't get any run support. So it's like people are overlooking the fact that he flat out just destroys that Yankees lineup from top to bottom.
He does. He absolutely does. And he has the highest strikeout per 9 in the league. I think it was a 14 point something K per 9.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Hitters can't catch a break against him. And I think the team he's on, like that Red Sox team, it's lethal. So I can't really make a case for anyone else when Chris Sale exists. Like, he's on my fantasy team, which I love. I love Chris Sale in that aspect. But as a Yankee fan, it's frustrating. You know, you can't shake this guy at all.
The only thing that could hurt him is the fact he's on the disabled list again. And it'll be the second time in the second half that he's been put on the DL. I don't think, unless he comes back the second time and he just flat out he can't hack it after a second DL stint, he's going to run away with it because he'll just have too many starts to make up for his time on the disabled.
Right. And do you think that's a routine maintenance, like some people are saying, or do you think like he actually is hurt?
Well, I think there's definitely something. I think people are blowing it out of proportion. I don't think it would require a DL stint, maybe like a couple extra days rested between starts, because what it was originally was, it still is mild left shoulder inflammation, and he got put on the disabled list, and he immediately said, like, I could have pitched in this game on Thursday, which was the first game of the Yankee series. But he was like, we have enough of a lead to the point in the division where the guys were just like, you know what, we're going to monitor this. We're going to make sure it doesn't get any worse. It just didn't bounce back the way he wanted to after the Minnesota game. And then when he came back, he only threw 68 pitches through 5 innings, and everyone lost their mind that he got yanked. And then it got put back on the disabled list again 2 days before I was going to the game, which was very frustrating. That's twice now. Both times he got put on the DL was 2 days before I was supposed to go to one of his starts.
Yeah. I mean, who knew Rick Porcello was going to do his greatest Chris Sale impression against the Yankees? That was just,
that was phenomenal.
He no hit through 8 innings or 1 hit, and it was like 86 pitches.
His only hit he allowed over the course of the entire game was a Miguel Andujar home run in the 3rd inning.
Well, there you go. But the pitch count was so low. The Yankees were making it so easy for him. It was just,
which is crazy because he also had 9 strikeouts in that game too. It's like you think a guy who was touching or approaching 10 Ks would at least hit 100 pitches, but he didn't even hit 90, which was insane. And I'm a guy that I'm not a huge Rick Porcello fan. I mean, he just coughed up a 3-0 lead against Cleveland, so that's great. But,
is that happening right now?
Yeah, that's happening right now. So yeah, I could be getting a little bit more frustrated as this goes on, but yeah, I mean, my pick for the American League Cy Young is obviously Chris Sale. Also, I think if you're gonna give it to somebody other than him, I don't even think it's a starter. My dark horse is Blake Trinan for the Oakland A's, and it's kind of like the debate with Zach Britton back in 2016. You know, he had that .54 ERA.
Right.
And I don't think he blew a save, and he didn't allow a run from like April until the end of the season, which was insane. Yeah. And I think his last run he allowed was a Mookie Betts home run, but just shameless hype of my own guys.
Yeah.
But 32 saves, .87 ERA. He's got 86 strikeouts and 62 innings pitched. He's got a 3.1 WAR as a closer. And to think that huge. He's doing that for Oakland, who's on the cusp of winning the American League West, I think it's definitely worth discussing. I don't think he has a legit shot because of how great Chris Sale's been, how great Trevor Bauer's been, Blake Snell, just Justin Verlander. I mean, Verlander struggled lately, but you know, all these guys that are starting that are putting up elite numbers. But I don't think it would be fair to overlook what Blake Trinan's doing in Oakland.
No, absolutely not. I think what he's doing for Oakland is just him and Chris Davis. You take those two out, the Oakland A's are not a playoff contending team for sure.
100%. They would.
When Fernando Rodney went to the A's, I tweeted, oh, if Fernando Rodney closes the wild card game, the Yankees have nothing to worry about. And people lost their minds. Like, do you not know who Blake Trinan is? Like, oh my God, it was a joke. Like, how do you not know who Blake Trinan is?
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny. That was where I got a glimpse of how terrible Yankees Twitter is. And I know
they're the worst.
And I know Red Sox Twitter is pretty bad as well, but like just seeing the overreaction to like if I tweeted something about Brock Holt playing shortstop for the future, like people know I'm joking. They'd be like, "Come on, dude." But like, like if you said, like if I said,
would Fernando Rodney close over Blake Trinan in a 1-game elimination? Like that's.
He probably wouldn't even be the second or third option for that team.
He wouldn't play. I wouldn't play.
You wouldn't see the field unless it was a blowout. So
no.
Or goes deep into extra innings, and you just flat out have to use guys. But
yeah,
that was bad. And I watched all those people just jump in there, and I was like, really? Like, I might have been one of those people because I hadn't followed you long enough to realize that was a joke, and I was like, did Blake Trinan die or something? Like,
oh yeah, I do remember that. I was like, no.
Yeah. Just trying to troll Yankees Twitter.
So, but nationally, it gets a little interesting, in my opinion, because I think the clear winner should be Jacob deGrom, but his record is 8-7, and that's not something I care to look at. But I know old school baseball fans see that and they say, "Oh, he doesn't win games." We all know it's not his fault. He doesn't win games. He's a 1.71 ERA. Of
course not.
Lowest ERA in baseball. He has the lowest home run per 9 allowed, yet the Mets just continue to get drilled every game. Like, it's not his fault. Like,
it's so bad.
It's really not.
I feel so bad for that guy. Like, he's my pick too.
Yeah.
And I have 2 other guys that would be right up there if his ERA wasn't almost half a run better than both of theirs, but like Max Scherzer's is 2.11. Aaron Nola's is 2.24, but like DeGrom should just be giving it out of pity. Like
he is a prisoner to the Mets. I feel so bad. I know when the trade deadline was coming around, he either wanted an extension with like money or he wanted to be moved because
they gave him neither.
Neither. They're like, we want to contend next year, so sorry. And I don't know with what team, but I'm sorry if any Mets fans listen to this. I don't hate the Mets, but you have to admit, like, Jacob deGrom does not deserve that mess. He has a 1.09 ERA against the Braves, their division rival, and the Braves still have a winning record against them, like when deGrom's starting. It's sad.
It is sad. I like to compare it to when Felix Hernandez won it. He was 13-12 that year. So I think deGrom will get serious consideration just because of how the rest of his numbers look, and they'll completely ignore. And it's going to be, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because Rick Porcello won his Cy Young strictly because he won 22 games.
Right.
So I was all about that, but now I'm like, just ignore the fact he's 8-7. His numbers are stupid. It would be unfair for him to not get it at this point.
I think so too, but I do think if that old school baseball mentality to where, he doesn't win games, wins over, it should be Max Scherzer, I think.
Yeah, if it's not given to deGrom, my pick would be Scherzer.
Yeah. He's 16-5, which is a 7.62 win percentage, and the Nationals only have a 4.96 win percentage. So he goes out there and he wins games. He is dominant. He has, like you said, 2.11 ERA. He has the 3rd highest K per 9 in the MLB. So if it's not Jacob deGrom, it's Max Scherzer.
Yeah, he leads the NL in wins, WAR, innings, strikeouts, and I have one more thing, and WHIP. So
yeah, I mean,
he's a guy that he actually could win the pitching Triple Crown this year in the National League, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, I think he should be considered equal with Jacob deGrom, but what Jacob deGrom is this year, I mean, I don't think there's a game where he doesn't go at least 7 to 8 innings. Like the Mets bullpen is atrocious, and I know they're not actually trying to win games. I mean, they can't be. So
at this point,
Jacob deGrom's out there,
it'd be foolish to try.
Exactly, but I mean, it honestly surprised me how he doesn't lead the National League in innings pitched because I feel like the Mets just leave him out there and just.
Yeah, it is crazy to think that with the historic season deGrom's having in terms of like ERA and all that there's actually somebody right up there with him, and in a lot of stats actually beating him out. So we'll move on from future Cy Youngs to former Cy Youngs, and we're going to talk. How about that transition, huh?
Yeah, I was impressed.
We're going to talk a little bit about Red Sox left-hander David Price. I know you've got your takes on him being a Yankees fan. I've got my takes on him being a Sox fan, obviously. I think his numbers this year, I mean, he's 13-6 with a 3.69 ERA, which I think people will look at his salary this year and they'll say, oh, David Price has been awful this season.
David over Price.
It's not the case. I mean, nobody in baseball, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 guys, are worth $30+ million, in my honest opinion. Maybe 10. I don't know. I'd have to look at that one. But his numbers this year are so skewed because of his starts against the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Like that start at Yankee Stadium, and then that in that game where he got yanked after 1 inning because he plays too much Fortnite and he couldn't feel his fingers. Those 2 starts killed his ERA this year. I mean, he's had to fight it all the way back from 4.3 down to 3.69, and he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball since the All-Star break.
Yeah, those splits blew my mind. Before the first half, he had a 4.42. Second half, a 1.35 ERA. It threw only allowing 5 earned runs through 33.1 innings. But like that's not David Price to me as a Yankees fan. I'm like, who? Like who has a 1.35 ERA? But I mean, his last start against the Yankees, he gave him a win. I mean, he looked good. I was really disappointed, like severely disappointed. The Yankees couldn't even capitalize on David Price. I mean, Gary Sanchez was out.
So was Judge.
Right, but Gary Sanchez.
I don't know if Judge doesn't own him to that extent, but yeah, that's 2 guys.
But even Giancarlo Stanton was like a little disappointing in that game against David Price. So, I mean, he's looked good. So
that Yankee start gave me almost gave me a heart attack because the way that the first inning started, where he loaded the bases, he got so lucky that Luke Voit doesn't know how to hit because. Oh my God! I knew he was going to be fine after the first inning because it's been the first inning that's really killed him in both of his starts against the Yankees. I know he didn't get better in that start at Yankee Stadium. He actually got worse. Mm-hmm. But if he had a scoreless first inning, there's no doubt in my mind he would have gone out there and shoved for 5 or 6, maybe 7, because he's a guy that's really notorious, at least in his Sox career, for the first inning was bad. I'm just going to completely roll over and die. And now it's
Sonny Gray.
Sonny Gray. Oh my God, I love Sonny Gray. I hate that he's on the Yankees, and I love the fact he's struggling because he's on the Yankees.
I love that he's on the Yankees because
I hated when they traded for him. Because I wanted the Sox to get him so bad, and now I'm
be with David Price.
Vandy buddies.
I loved that series though when you guys drilled us against Sonny Gray, and then we turned around and drilled you against David Price. It's like I wonder if they're gonna go cry together. Because they can't win.
They might have. There might have been a long texting conversation that we won't know about until both of them retire. But
so why do you think he has been so dominant? I looked. His strikeout percentage has been about the same. His K per 9 has been about the same. You think just hitters?
I'm a big Sandy Leon fan now. I hated him in the beginning of the year. I will give him a ton of credit for what David Price has done with him because at the beginning of the season, I was a huge Christian Vasquez guy where I was like, okay, Vasquez needs to catch Sale, needs to catch Price, needs to catch Rodriguez, needs to make sure everyone that is dominant is throwing to Christian Vasquez because if anyone gets on base, he holds runners on very well, stuff like that. But just looking at from an ERA perspective, Sandy Leon's catcher's ERA with David Price is 1.94.
Wow.
With Christian Vasquez, his catcher's ERA with David Price is 4.68. So almost 3 runs better. Oh my God, it's 5-3 Indians. Anyway,
Yankees are off. I have nothing to worry about today.
Anyway, Christian Vasquez has just wasn't the guy that I thought that he was going to be this year, and David Price has just flat out dominated. And one stat that I actually looked at that was crazy comparing Vasquez to Leon as opposed to just the catcher's ERA was David Price's strikeouts per walk with Leon is 7. With Vasquez, it's 2.74.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
you think it's a lot of game calling? And
I think so. I think with the Red Sox, they trust their catcher so much that they'll throw whatever gets put down. But with Leon, it seems to be the right pitch more often.
Right.
With Vasquez, and I've noticed this before with him, is he gets very fastball happy. And I know now David Price, since working with Leon, he's thrown a lot of fastball counts. He's thrown cutters, change-ups, and it's worked. And in the beginning of the year, he gets down 1-0, and it's a fastball, and it gets tagged. And I'm just sitting there holding my head in my hand because I'm so mad at David Price because he's one of those guys that I've wanted to succeed here so badly. Not just because I want him to opt out at the end of the year,
Right.
but he's getting paid a ton of money. He's supposed to come here and help them win a World Series, and he just hasn't been that guy.
Yeah.
So watching him struggle with Vasquez this year was killing me. But since he's turned it on with Leon, I think it might have a lot to do with Sandy Leon catching him.
I agree with that. I mean, absolutely. I feel that's kind of why Luis Severino could be struggling right now. I think it has a lot to do with the catchers. And I mean, I agree with you. You never want to root against someone you're paying that much money and, and you're contending for a World Series. I don't want Sonny Gray to be bad, but it's kind of hard not to root for him. So I'm happy for you that David Price is finally showing some life and doing what he's being paid to do. But as a Yankees fan, it's like, oh, well, there goes our one shot, that, that one weak spot in the Red Sox that we had, David Price.
I'm not going to say that David Price has all of a sudden figured out the Yankees because I need to see him pitch against them well with Sanchez and Judge in the lineup. And I know he did last year. He had that 8-inning shutout against the Yankees, or 8 shutout innings against the Yankees last season when he came off the disabled list, and he looked really well. But it took Jackie Bradley Jr. robbing a 2-run home run from Aaron Judge, or that stat line would have looked a little bit worse.
Yeah.
But I mean, David Price has looked great, and if he can figure out how to pitch against Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez, then the Red Sox really shouldn't have anything to worry about. Because luckily this year, if they have to face the Yankees in the playoffs, it will be the ALDS.
Right.
They'll have to win 3 games. So if Price and if Sale and Price can get 2 wins, you can afford to lose Game 3, and then you can just roll Sale back out in Game 4, and it's pretty much a done deal at that point.
I've never actually looked. How does Chris Sale do on short rest? Is it significant? Or
I haven't looked either, but this year he just hasn't had short rest. They've been monitoring him so much to the point where it's gotten annoying actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see him supposed to start on his normal rest, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, actually no, we'll start Brian Johnson tonight. We'll have Sale start tomorrow. And then I'm just like, really? I was so excited for this game, and now I have to watch Brian Johnson, who's pitched very well this year, but we're not going to talk about him because that'd just be pointless.
So are we not going to see Drew Pomeranz start a game against the Yankees? Was that a stupid question to ask?
He is awful. If he's even on the postseason roster, I will be genuinely shocked and probably and very upset with Dave Dombrowski because I love Dave Dombrowski. But if Drew Pomeranz even smells the postseason roster this year, they should just not even allow him in the dugout.
Yeah,
I know they let some minor leaguers just hang out and watch games during the playoffs, but if they let Drew Pomeranz even near the postseason roster, I might scream because he's been that bad. Like I remember when he got put in the bullpen, he had 3 scoreless outings in a row. One was all 3 of them are actually against Baltimore, or 2 against Baltimore, 1 against Philly, and then he got absolutely smacked by the Phillies in his next outing. And I was like, oh no, it's Drew Pomeranz. It's not like there was a eureka moment. He just sucks.
Yeah, this is painfully familiar to a Yankees fan. Moving someone to the bullpen and wow, 3 shutout innings. Oh my goodness. Here he is. And then nope.
Yep. Yeah. Except the thing with Sonny Gray, he throws 94 miles an hour. Drew Pomeranz tops out at 91.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Especially since he was throwing 94 last year.
I do think that if Sonny Gray was on a different team, he'd be a better pitcher. I think the whole Yankee sentiment of don't throw your fastball as much definitely messed with his mechanics. When you look at his fastball usage, with the A's versus the Yankees, he's using it way less. He's not attacking batters. He's just, nibbing at them, and they're just squaring up on him so easy. He doesn't have that attack mindset that we've been seeing from pitchers like Lance Lynn, and I don't think there's a spot for him anymore. I just don't.
He was actually a guy that I remember tweeting about after the trade deadline saying, look out for, I remember it was Marcus Stroman and Sonny Gray were I don't remember who the third one was. I know there was one, but as guys to watch out for on the waiver wire. But Brian Cashman's so stubborn. People give him so much credit for being this great GM, and I know he is. I'm not a guy that's going to say that he's bad by any means because he's a fantastic general manager, one of the best in the game. But he's so stubborn, he will not admit he lost that trade with Oakland. He will hang on to Sonny Gray until he literally gives him zero reason to.
The good thing with that, though, is the prospects we gave up for him have not been doing much anyway. So it kind of just felt like a wash. I mean, I don't know what they would have done for the Yankees either.
it's kind of like with the Red Sox when they traded Anderson Espinoza for Drew Pomeranz, because Pomeranz has been. I mean, Pomeranz had a good 2017, but he hasn't been good. He wasn't good in 2016. He was really bad in the playoffs in 2017, and then this year he's just been bad. But Anderson Espinoza can't get himself out of high A ball because he's walking guys left and right, and he keeps getting hurt. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a wash.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the Yankees are doing. I mean, Sonny Gray doesn't give them the chance to win, so I think they'll be just fine without him. You know, I didn't love the Lance Lynn trade right away.
You are now.
Oh, I'm like his biggest fan. If you could see from my Twitter, I love Lance Lynn. I think he's just the perfect fit for the Yankees. He's an absolute bulldog. If he's struggling, he just works through it. He could give the Yankees 6 innings every time, even if he's struggling. He let up 4 runs in the first inning, and he went on and continued to pitch 4 more innings for the Yankees. So whereas Sonny Gray, he just gets worse and worse. He's just rolling downhill. Like he can't catch up and fix himself. And I think for New York, it's not going to fly. The fans are too mean. I mean, the city, the spotlight, he crumbles under pressure. So
yeah, front runners. Sorry.
No, you're good. What were you going to say?
Saying front runners do not do too well in big markets. Like David Price was fantastic in Tampa Bay, Detroit, Toronto. Not very big baseball markets.
Right.
In Boston, he's a front runner. He gets down 2-0 in the first inning, and you're waiting for the wheels to come off. Luckily this year, other than the 2 Yankee starts, that hasn't happened for him that much. But Sonny Gray, every time he gives up a run in the first inning, you know he's going to get shelled. It's not even like he goes out, gives up a solo home run with 2 outs in the first, and you just know he might give up 2 more runs in that inning, and if he doesn't, he's going to start the next inning giving up 2.
Right. He's just mentally not tough enough for New York, I don't think, which in his defense, not everyone is. I mean, you look at Matt Harvey, the career he's having, the season he's having, I mean, with the Reds after, everything that happened with the Mets. I don't think it's uncommon, but I also don't think that Brian Cashman should hold on to him much longer. I was so upset because the Braves were scouting him, and I want to like Sonny Gray. So at the trade deadline, when the Braves were sending scouts to look at him, like, oh my God, he'd be perfect for Atlanta. Like small-ish baseball market, National League, great fans, great city, great team. I think he would have found himself in Atlanta. And I think when the Braves got Adam Duvall, they essentially made Ender and Ciarte expendable. I mean, now they have 6 outfielders. So, the Yankees and the Braves could have made a trade to where the Yankees could have got a bat and they could have got Sonny Gray, with their farm system and everything. But it never happened. But I'm not a GM, so.
It definitely would have been a buy low. It would have been a buy low scenario, and like Sonny Gray would have been perfect for Atlanta. Since the Brewers became a thing last year, I've been rooting for them to just get into the playoffs. I don't care if they just make the wild card game and get routed like the Pirates seem to do every single year that they made it.
Right.
But like, if I wanted them to get Sonny Gray so bad, the Braves were another team that I was looking at, but yeah, it's tough for Sonny Gray because I loved him when he was in Oakland. I wanted the Sox to get him so bad. They obviously wound up getting Chris Sale, which I think perhaps people.
It worked out.
It worked out in the end. It worked out in the end, but it is tough to watch a guy that you were a fan of for so long start struggling and not seem to be able to figure it out. And they're going to torture him because they're going to keep him.
I know.
They keep him.
And he so obviously doesn't want to be there. I mean, I wasn't one of the fans who got mad at that smirk heard around the world, coming off the mound. That was so obviously like wow, I deserve this. I suck. I'm garbage. Let's just laugh it off. People genuinely thought he was smiling because he was like maliciously losing for the Yankees. Like it was an inside job. And I'm like, the fans are just, I can't sometimes.
Yeah, no, there's no way somebody's happy about getting lit up like that.
No.
His confidence is shot. Like I remember there was this quote, and it was after the start against the Red Sox where Devers hit the grand slam in the first inning. Where he was like, I feel like we're the best team in baseball 4 out of 5 days, and the 5th day is the one I'm pitching. I was like, oh my God, that hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt me, and I'm a Sox fan.
Like why would you say that about yourself?
It's like, wow, way to self-degrade yourself.
And people are saying, send him out at AAA. He has one option left. Like, first of all, if he accepted the option, that would do absolutely nothing for his confidence going to AAA. He's done. If he goes to AAA, he's done. There's just no coming back from that. So I thought moving him to the bullpen was a great move. I mean, it worked for Luis Severino. Chad Green was a horrendous starter, and he's one of the best bullpen arms that the Yankees have. So, I mean, a bullpen demotion isn't really a demotion, in my opinion. I think, being part of the Yankees bullpen should be looked at as an opportunity. And he just...
Especially with how often they go to it.
Right.
And you get into the playoffs, if you find yourself gaining trust from your manager in the regular season, you get in the playoffs, your starter has a bad first inning. Sonny Gray goes in there, and he's a starter. And he's been known for performing when the lights shine the brightest.
Yeah.
He went out there and dueled against Justin Verlander twice back in, I believe it was 2012 or 2013 in the playoffs. Yeah. And he pitched his balls off both times.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wound up winning either of them, but it wasn't because of him. He was dominant both times out there.
Yeah, when he has that chip on his shoulder, I mean, he's I don't want to say one of the best pitchers, but I mean, he's good. He's good enough to be the number 3.
He's a legit 3.
Yeah.
He is a solid 2, and if he's on the right team, could be a 1, but he's not an ace. Like, there's a difference between being a number 1 and being an ace, and a lot of people lose that. Like I said, like I remember back when John Lester left, broke Boston's heart and signed with the Cubs. I remember saying, like, he's not an ace, he's just a number 1, and people are like, what's the difference? I'm like, everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll move on now because we kind of rambled about Sonny Gray, which wasn't even
it wasn't on our schedule.
Wasn't you brought him up a couple of times. We're going to talk a little bit about Luis Severino now because he was and Red Sox Twitter gives that Sevy Ace account so much crap, and well deserved, because of the he basically jinxed him, because at the time he had a 1.97 ERA, and he was talking about how we were witnessing such a historic season out of Luis Severino, which is true. He was flat out dominant, and I remember the Sunday Night Baseball game where Price was absolutely horrendous and Severino dominated, and it made me hate David Price even more at the time.
Yeah.
But ever since that start, really, he's just not been Luis Severino, and I don't even get it.
Like 118 innings pitched. I forgot how many games. I think it was 2. I don't remember the starts. I'm not even going to guess. He only allowed 26 earned runs through 118 innings. That was a 1.98 ERA. He was absolutely dominant. Everyone was talking about it as far as, Cy Young predictions. And then his next, 36 innings pitched, he let up pretty much the same amount of runs. Yeah, the ERA was absolutely horrendous. And at first, I actually wrote an article about it after his start in Kansas City. That was like his worst start. I think he let up 6 earned runs through 2-point-something innings. I thought, maybe he's tipping pitches. I mean, he's not a rookie by any means. I think this is his 3rd major league season. But first or second full season, I mean, he's really bad in 2016. That's when he got moved to the bullpen. And he wasn't particularly good last year. So this is his first season kind of being the ace. He's the Yankees guy. When he's on the mound, he gives the Yankees the chance to win every single time. And then he kind of fell apart. And it was interesting to me looking at the numbers and Gary Sanchez's disabled list stint. When he went on the disabled list, his ERA has just been like exponentially increasing. And I don't want to sound like a Gary Sanchez apologist, but I do think it, to your point about David Price and the Sandy Leon versus Vasquez, it could be confidence, it could be the game calling, but Severino pitches significantly better to Gary Sanchez. And I think, when Gary Sanchez does come back, I think that's where we'll see the immediate impact is through Luis Severino, through CC Sabathia, through the bullpen, because the Yankees pitching all around has been not great since he's been gone. And I think that you could definitely attribute it to Gary Sanchez not being behind the plate.
Yeah, people will laugh at you if you even insinuate that it's because of the catcher, but that's a legit thing.
It is. I mean,
it's a comfort thing. And you get so used to throwing to one guy that all of a sudden that guy gets taken from you and you're throwing to another guy. It takes a little bit of time to get comfortable too. And I'm not the same kind of pitcher as these guys, but I remember pitching for my AAU team and I threw the same guy for 3 years and all of a sudden it was a different catcher and I couldn't throw a strike. I was getting lit up. I just wasn't as confident. You get very familiar with guys that when all of a sudden something switches, you just don't know what to do with yourself. Right.
And I do think it's all mental. Like you said, it's confidence. Not to say anything bad about Austin Romine because I love who he is for the Yankees, our backup catcher, because that's who he is, the backup catcher. But I mean, the bullpen ERA is like a whole run higher. Luis Severino's ERA is a whole run higher. I mean, and a run doesn't sound like a lot, but most of the Yankees games do come within 1 or 2 runs, so those runs matter. I mean, Gary Sanchez's runs allowed per 9 is lower. His catcher ERA is lower. The stolen bases allowed while Romine's behind the plate, like he just doesn't hold runners on base like Gary Sanchez does. And even though his offensive numbers have not been impressive this year by any means, he's still a threat at the plate. Gary Sanchez comes to the plate, pitcher knows not to throw one straight down the middle because he's going to hit it 121 miles an hour over the fence. Austin Romine doesn't really bring that to the lineup. He doesn't bring that to the table. And I think it is a confidence thing. When Gary Sanchez is there, I feel the team, and I mean, obviously Aaron Judge as well. But if we're just talking about Luis Severino and Gary Sanchez, I think it is completely mental. It's a confidence thing. I think the Yankees are more confident with him behind the plate for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have his ERA with each of the 3 catchers he's thrown to. With Sanchez, it's 2.67. With Romine, it's 3.62, and with Higashioka, it's 3.86. I mean, that's only an 11 2/3 innings, but he has thrown to him.
Right.
It's clearly a comfort thing because I mean I don't think someone just gets that bad overnight. I mean it's not even being disrespectful to him. He's been horrible.
Since and I sent you that chart. His rolling ERA, his Gary Sanchez DL stint, and Luis Severino ERA, like it was to the date, like it just shot up his ERA. It's gotten higher. And I know ERA isn't the only pitcher stat you can look at, but that it just speaks volumes for what Severino has been going through. And I don't think it's his mechanics because his fastball hasn't lost any velocity. It's a lot more of his command. And I think that has a lot to do with the catcher behind the plate. And also the pitch framing. Gary Sanchez's pitch framing is well above average. If you watch him, I mean, he's
one of the best in the game at that.
Yeah,
I'll give him
absolutely.
that. I get on him a lot for not being the best at blocking the ball or keeping it in front. He gets lazy sometimes, which is something you really don't want to see from your catcher.
No.
I gave him a ton of crap for after that game where he basically cost the Yankees a win by jogging down to first base.
Yeah.
And the next day, Austin Romine got the Heart and Hustle Award from the Yankees. Like, I had a field day with that, but...
And I'm not going to defend that. I'm not going to defend the pass balls and the hustling. But I will say that that's something that you can fix. But you can't teach Austin Romine to throw to second base 88 miles an hour. Like last year, he had the number 1 in max effort arm strength, number 3 in pop time at steal times at second base. Like from when the ball came to his glove to when it got to the second baseman glove, 3rd fastest in the league. Like he is an elite catcher, but he's a butcher at blocking. I mean, he is, but that's something that he could work on, and he is. I know the hustling leads people to believe that he's lazy, but he does work hard. If you watch him and you follow along, like he's working really hard right now to get healthy, and I think when he comes back, he'll be better. Definitely way better.
Yeah, people do overrate the whole doesn't work hard with being lazy. Like, I'm not going to argue against Hanley Ramirez's work ethic when he's not playing, but there's just plays he takes off, and we see it in other sports too, like Des Bryant in football, one of the best wide receivers in the game, but he takes way too many plays off to the point where teams literally don't even want him because he's still a free agent.
Yeah.
So, but
he has a meeting with the Cleveland Browns thing coming up, so maybe he'll find a home in Cleveland.
It's just people will overlook bad work ethic with being lazy. Like, obviously, it is kind of weird to say somebody can be lazy but still work hard at the same time. But we see, it's just taking plays off, and it's inexcusable when it happens, especially in that game against Tampa, which I think was the only game Gary Sanchez played in between DL stints. I could be wrong, but where he blocked the ball and he jogged after it, and the guy scored from second on a wild pitch, and then the ground ball to short where they literally tried to get the force at second base. All he had to do was not even sprint, but run maybe 3/4 speed, and he's safe.
Yeah,
and the game's tied. But instead, he jogs and then tries to put on the Jets, and I think that's where he actually hurt himself when he went from jogging to trying to sprint. But,
I think that was his rock bottom. I think that's the worst we're ever going to see from Gary Sanchez because of how loud the discrimination was, and you could tell in the post-game interviews, through his translator, when Meredith or whoever was asking the questions, he understood. He knew what he was being asked, and like you could see it in his face. Like he knew he screwed up. That's a really hard situation to be in. You can't really defend yourself there. But I think to his point, though, if he was still injured, I mean, and he was told to run at 80%. I don't think he was even running at 80%. He was running at like 30%, but I mean,
he was doing a home run trot to first base.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not going to defend it because I get mad when I see guys in the Red Sox jogging to first base, even if it's a single to center field.
Mm-hmm.
When they jog down to first base, I feel like they should always. Maybe it's because I'm so just very recently removed from playing high school baseball, where you literally will get yanked from a game if you don't sprint everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those guys that really gets mad when guys don't hustle.
Yeah.
You can give exceptions to certain guys like pitchers when they have to run down the baseline. They sometimes just don't leave the box.
Yeah.
And like David Ortiz never did, and I never got on his case for that because he's David Ortiz. I mean, he can do what he wants.
But that's what I'm hoping Gary Sanchez will be for the Yankees and Yankee fans. I mean, he's only 25. This is only his sophomore season as far as full seasons go. I know in 2016 he lit the world on fire, but he only played for 2 months, so you can't really – he had enough at-bats to make that his rookie year, but I feel like last season was his true rookie year because he played the full season. This is, his sophomore slump, and I've compared him to Jorge Posada in the past. Jorge Posada was known for the pass balls. He was, and the wild pitches charged against him. It's a very similar situation. Jorge Posada moved a lot behind the plate, which Gary Sanchez doesn't do. But the blocking balls I think is very similar to that. And Jorge Posada in 1998, the best Yankee team ever, didn't really put up all that impressive numbers. I think his wins above replacement, his WAR was a 1.4, and before Gary Sanchez's disabled list stint, his was about a 1.2. So, I mean,
right on par. Yeah, I mean, and I think we might as well move on and talk about the impact that he'll bring when he comes back. I mean, we already did talk about it, but we will take a step further. And we'll talk about Aaron Judge when he returns to the lineup, how much of an impact he'll bring. Personally, in my opinion, just getting Shane Robinson out of the lineup and replacing it with Aaron Judge is enough to be like, as a Red Sox fan, you look in the rearview mirror and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like they almost lost the game because Shane Robinson tried to bunt. Now imagine putting Heath Hembry against Aaron Judge trying to take him 450 feet dead center field.
Right.
That's scary. And just like Gary Sanchez, even if Aaron Judge could go 0 for his next 40 when he comes off the disabled list, but every pitcher's up there messing his pants thinking, if I make a mistake, the slump ends here, and he goes 4 for 4 today.
Exactly. And he's a clubhouse guy for sure. I mean, he's been in the dugout every game, but I think the leadership he brings, and he's just, I feel with Brett Gardner, he's just the heart and soul of the Yankees. And I think having him out on the field and having him back in the lineup is going to bring that life back into the Yankees. I mean, they've been playing pretty much 500 ball since he's been gone. So that speaks, I think, volumes for what he does for the Yankees. And I think Gary Sanchez's impact, I think he'll definitely be hitting better than 188 or 187, whatever it is. But it's kind of unfair to expect him to start hitting 280 right away. But I think his immediate impact will be shown through the pitching. But Aaron Judge, I think he'll come off his injury, rolling. I think he'll just be absolutely the player that we know he is. And even just having him back in right field with the short porch alone is just going to be, I mean, watching Neil Walker in right field has been hard, to say the least. It's been hard.
Not for me. That's fun. That's fun. Don't lie.
Because Aaron Judge he's an elite fielder. Like, I feel like no one talks about that.
It helps that he doesn't have to jump to rob home runs, but yeah, he's a great outfielder. He covers ground. He has a great arm. He's a good outfielder. He's not on the same level as guys like Mookie Betts, but I think he's close. He's close. I don't think it's biased. I think it's just I have a little bit more respect for a guy that's doing it at 5'10" as opposed to doing it 6'7", just because I feel like, I'm not gonna say it's easier to play right field at 6'7", but when you have that short porch and you're standing and your head is like half a foot shorter than it, you're just like, wow, if Mookie Betts or really any other outfielder in baseball robs that home run, you're like, wow, that's a great catch. You're like, Aaron Judge didn't even jump for that ball.
No, yeah.
You're like, wow, that was a routine fly ball to right field that he just caught. Wow, great job.
And his arm alone, I mean, he made an assist at the plate once from right field, and it was an out. He's so much better in the field than people kind of recognize him for, because everyone, his home runs, like he's 26 home runs in the season, and he hasn't played in over a month. He's just dominant. And I think when him and Gary back together, bringing the squad together again, it's just the Yankees are going to get hot in September. And I really genuinely don't think they're going to win the division, but that's okay because I do think that the wild card game will be like a cakewalk for them. I do. I mean, unless it's Justin Verlander, it won't be a cakewalk, but I still think they'd win. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the Yankees don't scare me as a team to win the division, but you get into a 3 to 5 game series with them, and you get the right guys hot. That's tough. Like if the Red Sox go out there in game 1 of the ALDS and it's Sale versus whether it's Tanaka or Severino, and they lose the game 2-1, I'm scared out of my mind.
Right.
Because then you got to go with David Price and his question mark history against the Yankees in game 2, regardless of how he does. And then you're like, oh man, Porcello's going game 3.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so that could either be what it was back when he faced them at Fenway, or it could be an absolute nightmare because he's pitching at Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Yankees don't scare me the regular season, but you get into the postseason, I think they're much more built for that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, what's your take on the Red Sox's history in the postseason as of lately? I mean, they haven't been necessarily good in the postseason. This current team got swept. Like, how do you feel going forward with that?
I think it's different this year than it has been in years past. Not just because they're a better team and they have actually, I think it might have a lot to do with the fact they have a different manager. I mean, in 2016 they ran into a complete wagon in Cleveland. Nobody expected that to happen.
No.
In 2017 they were 6 outs away from forcing Game 5.
Right.
But John Farrell, I know he got ejected, and people will be like, it wasn't John Farrell, but he's making all the decisions from the clubhouse, and he left Sale out there against Alex Bregman, who feasted on him that series.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Addison Reed ready in the bullpen. I mean, they're 6 outs away. They were literally a common sense 2 innings away from forcing Game 5, and anything happens in that.
Yeah.
In the Game 5, even if David Price was starting, which I think he would have been. But I'm not that worried this year unless they run into a team like New York. If they ran to Houston, I think they have a much better shot at beating them this year than they did last year. If they run to Oakland, I think Oakland's luck runs out because of how much better on paper the Red Sox are. I think they'll, at least from a pitching perspective. I mean, you're running out in Game 1 with who I don't even know who their Game 1 starter would be. Sean Manaea. I know he hit the Red Sox earlier in the year, but against Chris Sale, like in the postseason, I don't see that. I don't see that being a good matchup for Oakland. But against New York, I'd be concerned.
Postseason ball, I feel, is a complete different monster. Like, it's just, you don't really know what's going to happen. And a team like Oakland, who hasn't made the postseason since 2012, 2013, when Sonny Gray was there. When was that? 2013?
2013. They made it in 2014. That was the year they lost.
They did. Okay, so I mean, they're recent enough.
Yeah, they lost in the wild card game that year.
Okay, but I mean, I don't know what to expect from Oakland as a postseason team. I know the Yankees are built for October. I'm not really scared about making the playoffs because they have the second best record in baseball. There's no reason they're not going to make the playoffs. And once they're in October, I'm not worried. I know I should be, but it's a complete different playing field, and I think the Yankees really do thrive in that situation. So yeah, I'm not scared of Houston or Oakland in a wild card game. It stopped. I don't know. We were talking and it just like went away. Yeah. I don't know. It just stopped. Oh, his laptop died. I don't know. It was live though, because he tweeted out the link, which I just saw. So that whole time, people could be watching. How did I sound? Really? Would you listen to me if I was a real podcast? Yeah. It was about an hour. Do you think that's like too long? Can you bring me my laptop charger?
You already went and got the food.
Yeah, I think you should. Because I think by the time we get back, we should be wrapping it up. You sure I sounded good?
Really good.
It's a lot easier than I thought. I'm definitely way more comfortable than I thought I would be.
Just got off the phone with my man.
She said?
This is what-
14.
Somebody tried to break into my mom's.
Well, I want the one with the 3 tenders
The box.
with extra sauce
No saw.
and a large cherry coke.
I'll be back.